is animal agriculture, not energy plants. The leading cause of biodiversity loss is animal agriculture, not transportation. The leading cause of water pollution, and by far the most prolific user of water, is animal agriculture, not manufacturing. And the leading cause of climate change is animal agriculture, more than all other causes combined. And then let us consider the oceans, 70% of the Earth, the greatest carbon sink in the world, absorbing about 1/3 of carbon dioxide emissions. Industrial fishing operations are destroying our oceans, killing whales and dolphins and dramatically reducing fish populations, as well as harming sea forests and phytoplankton populations. This is in order to provide humans with the 3% of our food calories that we get from fish, and also to provide food for cows, the world's leading fish predator. We humans are self-healing mechanisms. If you have a wound, the doctor will dress it and tell you to leave it alone and it will heal. Similarly, the Earth is a self-healing mechanism. It will heal and the climate will return to stability if we can leave enough of the Earth alone. But how can we leave enough of the Earth alone to heal? There are 8 billion humans. There's only one way to do it, by not eating animals. If we stop grazing ruminants, we could restore 40% of the Earth's land surface, much of it to forest, and the rest to healthier grasslands with more vegetation. If we stop industrial fishing, we could heal the oceans, 70% of the Earth. Together, that's over 80% of the Earth that we can leave alone to heal if we stop the stupidity of eating animals. As industrial fishing extracts all life from the seas, we are deadening the oceans in order to gain 3% of our food calories. Might that be a little bit short-sighted? It is the hubris of humanity to disregard what we cannot see. Our environment, like our bodies, depends on microorganisms for health. Flourishing oceans teem with phytoplankton in just the right balance to provide a food source for fish, to sequester carbon dioxide, capturing 40% of the Earth's carbon dioxide, and to provide oxygen for Earth. More than 50% of the oxygen we breathe, every breath we take, contains oxygen from ocean plants, mainly phytoplankton. The oceans have a sense of humor about size. They have created an abiding friendship between microscopic plankton and, naturally, whales. Like phytoplankton, whales sequester carbon dioxide, but the whale-plankton bond goes deeper than that. The movement of whales brings up nutrients from the bottom of the ocean to the surface where the plankton feed on them. Never a snobbish species, plankton dine as well on the waste of whales, rich in iron and other nutrients. A more robust population of whales leads to enhanced phytoplankton activity, which represents a dramatic advantage in the quest to draw down carbon. A 1% increase in phytoplankton activity equates to the carbon capture of 2 billion mature trees. Phytoplankton produce dimethyl sulfide, which rises in the atmosphere, adheres to water droplets, and produces clouds. The clouds, in turn, reflect light and help cool the planet. And so the poop of whales indirectly helps create clouds that regulate the climate. It's doubtful that anybody with a harpoon ever gave that a thought. If you eat lobster, you may be contributing to the death of whales. Lobster traps on the ocean floor are connected by ropes to buoys on the surface. Those ropes sometimes get caught in the whales' mouths, fins, or tails, then cut into their flesh and lead to their demise. So your lobster dinner may come at the expense of the life of a whale and may thereby help prevent clouds from forming. And so where are we? Humanity is faced with an existential crisis in the form of a warming planet with melting glaciers. And instead of facing the truth and accepting that the only way to save ourselves is to stop eating animals, allowing us to thereby rewild the vast grazing lands and to protect the oceans, Instead of doing so, we continue the lie that the climate crisis results solely from the burning of fossil fuels. That has been the approach of our leading climate spokesmen like Al Gore, and that has been the approach of governments and of the United Nations for the last quarter century. And yet we burn more fossil fuels now than we were burning then. So at what point do we give up on this fantasy? Al Gore has recently made a strategic mistake. After 20 years of decrying the lack of action by governments, he now celebrates the Inflation Reduction Act that includes $370 billion for clean energy initiatives. He calls it a game changer for the climate. He's terribly excited about it. He says that now we're finally making great progress. Regardless of the merits of the law, Gore's mistake is that he'll run out of excuses when this too fails to make a dent in the climate and in the rise of greenhouse gases. Nothing, after all, is going to work unless we allow the oceans to heal by banning industrial fishing and unless we rewild the grazing lands. Everything else is just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. So there you have it. We're heating up the planet to the point that catastrophic fire and flood will be daily events. We're creating pandemics. We're depriving ourselves of antibiotics. We're fouling our landscapes with lagoons of manure. We're polluting our waterways and draining our aquifers. We're deadening our oceans. We're creating droughts and deadly heat waves in order to exploit and abuse children so they can help provide the meat and fish and cheese and eggs that make us fat and sick and give us heart attacks. If that's not stupid, I don't know what is. Often, I point all this out to meat eaters, and what I hear in response is, yeah, I get it, Glenn. So would it be good enough if I just try to cut down a little bit on my meat consumption? No, snowflakes, it won't be good enough if you just try to cut down a little. I hear, how about if I try meatless Mondays? No, snowflakes, it's way too late for meatless Mondays. I hear, what if I eat only organic grass-fed meat? I'm sorry, snowflakes, but grass-fed beef is worse for the climate than feedlot beef because the cows grazed on grass belch more methane and take up more land than feedlot cows. If everyone ate grass-fed beef, we'd need about 4 planet Earths, and it's just as unhealthy as feedlot beef. I hear, how about if I switch from red meat to white meat? No, snowflakes, that won't be any better for you. White meat is just as deadly as red meat. I hear, how about if I just have some fish? No, snowflakes, the oceans matter, and mercury is not a health food. I hear, how about if I eat real meat just until the lab meat comes along, and then I promise I'll switch to lab meat? No, snowflakes, there's never going to be lab meat in the grocery store. That's a hoax. And even if there were, it would still kill you because it would still be meat. I hear, I probably should do it. I probably should go vegan, but I don't think I can. What would I eat? Really? Snowflakes, it's too hard for you to eat human food? That's too limiting for you? Or are you claiming that you don't know how to prepare it? Here's how you cook pasta. You put it in a pot of boiling water. Potatoes you could bake, steam, saute, boil. To cook grains, rice, oatmeal, millet, buckwheat, you rinse them, put them in water, heat the water, let it simmer, and cook your grains. Beans even come pre-cooked in cans. All you have to do is open them up, rinse, and heat up the beans. Salads you eat raw, that's easy. You've got a whole universe of whole grains, fruits, vegetables, legumes, mushrooms, nuts, and seeds to choose from. There are so many kinds of mushrooms you wouldn't believe it. There are thousands of vegan cookbooks to help you. I promise you, if you go vegan, you're going to get so much healthier, feel so much better, and piss off so many members of your family. It's a win-win-win. There's nothing hard about this except telling your meat-eating friends and family that you've decided to get healthy and go vegan. And that's really what you're afraid of, and you know it. It's your fear of telling your friends that you're a your fear of telling your friends that you're a vegan so great that you'd rather have a heart attack? What is it exactly about eating meat that makes people such cowards? You can do this, snowflakes. Join the vegans. Come on in. The water's warm and it's getting warmer.
Thank you very much, Glenn, for that very powerful presentation. So we have a few minutes that we can open up for a Q&A. But before we begin, let you give the opportunity to let people know where they can go and get your book and get in contact, or follow you on social media.
Okay, I have a website that's glenmerzer.com. My last two books are this one, Own Your Health, which is a book on nutrition with recipes by Chef AJ. And then there's my book, Food is Climate, which is a response to Al Gore, Bill Gates, Paul Hawken, and the conventional narrative on climate change, also with recipes by Chef AJ and other chefs.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing. And we will now begin our Q&A session. We will be asking questions of you. And if the audience has questions, we will open up to take questions from them as well. We first just want to explain to everyone how this works. We don't take questions directly from the chat. Instead, we ask everyone to virtually raise their hand. If you're not sure how to do this, what you need to do is click on the reactions button, second from the right on the bottom of your Zoom window, then click on the raise hand function in the menu that pops up. We will then take questions in the order in which we receive them. When it's your turn, I will unmute you and prompt you to state where you're from and ask your question. We ask that everyone keep their questions brief and on topic. We will then mute you. If you have any sort of follow-up question, you can go ahead and raise your hand again. And if we have time, we'll get to you again. So with that, okay, we got Bex. Please state where you're from and ask your question.
Yes, hello. I really appreciate you, Glenn. So educational, just amazing. How long? I'm in Los Angeles, by the way, and I would say that I make efforts to be whole food, plant-based, but in our society, it is difficult with all the subsidies, etc. I'll be traveling, and so, what are some travel tips on eating plant-based, and how do we change our laws and make policy change so that in our lifetimes things get better? Thank you.
Okay, first about the traveling. It isn't easy. It depends what style of traveling you're doing, what part of the country you're traveling in. If you're is my volume on?
We can hear you.
Okay. It depends if you're driving through rural areas, sometimes there may not be much in the way to eat, places to stop other than McDonald's. So you have to bring your own food. And then it's a question of what kinds of foods travel well, granola or, rice cakes or, what you can bring. But I like to keep in mind, my wife and I, when we travel, we like to keep in mind that if we're then staying in hotels, there's a refrigerator. So if we can, keep a soy yogurt cool in the car long enough, we could then put it in the refrigerator in the hotel room, and we carry a little ice pack thing to keep it cool in the car. So there are ways to do that. And also you can look to see the towns and cities that you're stopping in, what restaurants are there, and if you could get a halfway decent meal there. So that's my tips for traveling. Chef AJ has many tips on that subject too. As for the government, I'm sorry, I'm not counting on the government to solve this problem anytime soon. We can't even get them to stop subsidizing animal foods, and I don't expect they will. That's too strong a lobby, and it's both Republicans and Democrats.
Okay, thank you for that. So we have about one more minute. So if you can make this quick, I'll just ask you a question on environmental issues. How does our diet affect biodiversity loss, and why does that matter?
Well, biodiversity requires forests, and it requires healthy oceans. And what is causing the loss of the forest is the animal agriculture industry more than anything else. So we just need to leave the planet alone as much as possible, and the biodiversity will come back.
All right, great. And I'll give you one more quick one. And how about how does our diet affect weather and the melting glaciers?
Well, it's causing heating. The methane from cows and the lack of the loss of trees is causing more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, more methane in the atmosphere. It's causing heating, which is melting the glaciers. And, and we're destroying the oceans with industrial fishing. And the oceans are a natural carbon sink. So, there's just no way we're going to reverse this unless we become a vegan world. There's no way to do this just with solar panels.
All right, great. Thank you so much. So thank you so much for your presentation. It was a very powerful presentation. We're going to open up the mics for the audience so they can share their appreciation for your presentation. I saw a lot in the chat, so they are very into it. So you hear a cacophony of thanks going on momentarily.
Thank you, Glenn.